Hi. Um, I have a video there in my Vim session that was released and dropped under exclusive access by 2-Bit DaVinci. I'm not a. I don't sub him. I'm a patient man. I can wait for the news to actually come out and drop into that area, and if I do, pay for that sort of thing, usually it's just to because I support the artists and I realize that they're a starving artist and I just want to support their career and everything in that space and musician wise and everything like I do in Bloom. But, that's there and everything. And, he released this video, solid state batteries are here, and he finally tested everything. He really did put it through a battery of test. He drove a nail through it, lit its electrolytes on fire, cut one in half with a pair of scissors, and nothing happened. So he flew to Taiwan and spent 2 days inside Prologium, the company that's been quietly building solid-state batteries for 20 years, and it's now shipping cells at gigawatt-hour scale that hit 360 watt-hours per kilogram on a third-party verified test. So they weighed it, tested it, and tortured it. This is the deepest solid-state battery video that he's ever made. And it's good. It's a good video, logic-wise, if you've got 28 minutes to kill and everything. And I definitely recommend that and everything now that it's finally on, open access, to everybody. But, this big tech, revolution that's been happening in batteries, I mean, it's great and everything. And it's the next, the future of batteries, very obviously, now that these problems are, solved ultimately. Now that somebody's figured out how to do them in a way that is marketable and everything, and outside the lab too, and everything, and that it's usable now in real world scenarios like electric vehicles and everything. I just think that the context here and everything has been a little bit too narrow, if you get what I'm trying to say. And if you don't, I'm going to explain what I mean by that to you and everything. When we make solid state batteries, we're mostly talking these days about making them for electric vehicles and everything, and that's great. I've definitely wanted one, to say the least, and I don't know, very well maybe our family's next vehicle and everything. I don't know what the future has in store for us and everything, but what I can tell you, kind viewer, that has given me your time and everything by watching this one, is that somebody came on Facebook, right? And what they did is they made a post, and that post was basically looking for product recommendations, and they were in the market for a laptop, right? And so they were asking for recommendations about a laptop. Now, I am preferential because of the fact that I've had a really good time, running Asus tough gaming laptops and everything. Now, they're not quite Framebook quality, but, one thing they have over Framebook is that, if I go on Amazon, I can order them and have them here the next day. And when I'm in desperate need for a new one because my old one just burst and broke, that's something that I can do and have it here overnight and everything. And that's pretty great. So the wait time isn't too bad and everything. And so I had to get an emergency system when my old one, when I started experiencing issues from an upgrade where it started to spark when I was trying to work inside the laptop, trying to figure out how to detach something to get at something that was underneath it and everything, and that scared me, and so I went and immediately bought something new and everything, even though it booted up just fine and it apparently caused no real issues. It still was concerning, and so I immediately went and bought a new system, and, I love the system I have, and, there were other things that were weighing on my decision at that point, because it was kind of a now or never sort of thing with the price of all these components going through the roof and everything. So I snatched mine at like the final point before I knew that prices were going to go way up and everything. And so I decided to, bite in at that point. But he asked me for a recommendation, and I said I was had pretty good luck. I liked the way that the Asus battery, that's in this machine is able to be easily replaced, and that if I want to go in and switch the hard drives out, it's a fairly painless process with Asus from experience, and the components are upgradable, and plus I got a absolutely enormous amount of RAM where I'm not writing access memory, where I'm not having problems with, you know, with using it. And if you're not like technically literate, like random access memory, there's a difference between random access memory and the memory that we use to store files and data, you know. And that difference is basically random access memory is what your computer needs to run programs. It's what, OBS Studio, for instance, that's making this video is using to run OBS Studio. It's the memory that it's requesting from things to, display my screen and share it with you and everything. And data is stored on hard disk and or solid state disk drives and everything, and it goes in them and everything. Or so on this computer it's totally a solid state drive and everything, but it gets saved there, and that's where we store our data. So our programs need memory to run, and our data needs a different type of memory to store and everything. And that's your IT breakdown and everything, an explanation for things if you're a noob that isn't initiated into this world. And the type of memory that we use to run our programs is called random access memory. So if you don't know shit about computers, you've just been elevated to the point where you understand what's going on. Congratulations. So my computer has a lot of it and everything, but the price for this type of memory was going through the roof and everything. And uh, this type it was absolutely going through the roof. And I bought at that point and everything, but this person pooed my response and was like, you gross. And getting such a negative reaction to it, and being the curious sort that I am, I was like, well, I'm not angry at your response. I'm just looking for insight. Why do you say that in response? I'm curious about your opinion. I mean, maybe you know something that I don't and everything, and and that's shaping your opinion. And so the guy actually responded, credit to him and everything, and he said, essentially, that the battery life on X86 laptops was unappealing. And that response totally got me thinking, you know it totally got me processing, because I realized that Apple, it has ARM based laptops, and that you know they charge for a lot longer than these laptops that I'm like the one that I'm running right now. You know, just so you can get a readout of my components and everything. I don't mind letting you guys know, especially because I patch pretty frequently. So it's an AMD Ryzen 9. It's the Hawk Point, system and everything. It's a 4 nanometer processor. It's the AMD Ryzen 9 240 with, Radeon 8 780 graphics and everything, and that's just the chip graphics. That's the on-chip graphics and everything. That's not the actual graphics card, because I have dedicated graphics on here. It's instructions. That's some nice instruction sets and everything. It's not the absolute top of the line, but it's pretty good. Solid. I don't like that the bus specs are using PCI 4. That why would you be doing that at this point? But hey, oh, I see. So we have two different ports, right? So there's the PCI 5. All right, good for the graphics card. Okay. Memory. That's the really great part, is that it's got 64 gigabytes and everything, and that's basically 560 uh, 5,600, uh, so 28 28,000, megahertz, is the memory bandwidth and everything. And so graphics wise, I'm running an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 75070, and the laptop version of it, which, has about 8 gigabytes of GDR4, GDR7, sorry, wish it had more, but, that's just the level that we've got and everything. And the on chip graphics has 2 gigabytes, so that's that, well, I mean, that's a lot for being on the chip itself. But hey, I wonder how much cache memory I've got here in the L2. That kind of, now, I know that having a larger cache these days is kind of important too, and everything, just because of the fact that it makes, processors run a little bit faster to be able to have more on here and everything. But that's my system, and it's pretty good. It's decently modern. It's, I'm not really having problems at this stage of things and everything. It'll be good for a while and everything, and it'll run, reasonably well. I'm looking at the core, what are the core count? Damn it. So yes, 8 cores and 16 threads. So that's the system that I'm running currently, and like I said, I mean, that amount of memory and everything has made it my daily driver. Now, this is a pretty good, decent state and everything. It's not optimal, but it's good. It was about a $2,000 purchase and everything, and ouch, but it's, I don't really fully regret the purchase. You know what I'm saying? I like it. I certainly got a lot of utility and use out of it. So I'm happy and everything with it. But one thing that I've been thinking ever since I got that is I'm getting all this news. Like I said and told ChatGPT about the fact that there's been this rise of ARM and everything as a result of and I'm relatively tech obsessed, so that's what I talk about. But the rise of ARM and everything, and it's largely because of these cell phones that have done this to us and everything. Now, I don't like the term sideloading because myself either, because it implies that we've accepted the narrative that we shouldn't be able to just run the programs that we want to run and everything, and that there's something fundamentally different about cell phones than laptops, when in reality they're both general purpose computers and everything. And that's what changed about cell phone technology, is that we decided to merge a general purpose computer with a cell phone that we could carry around with us everywhere. And so a lot of people don't necessarily need more than that, but I certainly enjoy it. I enjoy the larger screen, and the way that some tasks are just easier to do on here compared to my cell phone. Like typing, you're not, like, typing some shit with your thumbs is just not a great experience. And so yeah. Ugh. Ooh, I'm a penguin. To protect their eggs, penguins remain alert, even when they sleep. Penguin sleepers are getting enough sleep and keeping a regular cycle, but they tend to wake up too often at night. Yeah, that's nice and everything that I've got a sleep animal. But anyways, we need solid state batteries for X86 laptops. Yeah, absolutely. Solid state batteries in X86 laptops would be a pretty huge quality of life jump, especially for thin and light machines where battery volume, heat, and safety are constant bottlenecks. A sanity check the current state rather than hand wave it, because battery commercialization timelines are a graveyard of 2 years away promises. He thought for 4 seconds and then he basically came back. ChatGPT. More battery in the same space. Solid state batteries can theoretically offer higher energy density because they replace flammable liquid electrolytes with solid electrolyte that may enable thin lithium metal or high silicon anodes. Samsung SDI describes solid state batteries as having both higher stability and higher energy density potential. So this would make for better thin and light laptops. X86 laptops are thermally and spatially constrained. A solid state battery pack could mean longer runtime at the same weight, or smaller batteries with the same runtime. I'm not just talking about. Anyways, so to get the very specific response, gaming laptops are arguably the more interesting case. Thin and light laptops benefit because they get more runtime in the same chassis, but gaming laptops have a much nastier problem. They're portable until the GPU wakes up, and then suddenly the battery becomes a countdown timer. Solid state batteries could help gaming laptops in a few ways. More watt hours without making the laptop absurdly heavy. A lot of gaming laptops carry 80 to 99 watt batteries because the 100 watt is the common airline limit. If solid state batteries could pack more usable energy into the same physical volume, vendors could either stay near that limit with smaller packs or use the space more efficiently. Less severe unplugged performance and compromise. Oh wow, so that's the airline limit. Oh Jesus. Right now, many gaming laptops throttle hard on battery because the battery cannot sustainably deliver a desktop class CPU or GPU for long without heat, volume sag, and rapid drain. A better battery chemistry with higher power delivery and better thermal behavior could make gaming on battery less pathetic. Better laptop, so that you could pack more in too under this. Better battery health under brutal loads. Gaming laptops soak everything: CPU, GPU, VRMs, SSD, chassis, battery. Conventional lithium batteries hate heat. Solid state battery packs could potentially tolerate laptop abuse better, especially repeated fast charge discharge cycles. More design freedom. Imagine a gaming laptop where the battery is not just a rectangular slab occupying a huge chunk of the bottom. Safer, denser cells could allow weirder layouts. More cooling, larger fans, bigger speakers, more ports, or even less desktop replacement brick energy. There's one big caveat. Even solid state batteries won't make a 170 watt GPU behave like a Steam Deck APU. A high-end gaming laptop pulling 150 to 200 watts under load would still chew through battery fast. The real would be going from LOL 45 minutes and throttled to maybe actually usable for a couple hours at sane settings, especially with frame caps, DLSS, FSR, ESS, hybrid graphics, and better power tuning. So yeah, I'm with you. The killer use case is not just MacBook Air, but with more battery. It's X86 gaming laptops that stop being emotionally dependent on wall outlets. Right now, they're basically desktops with a UPS chest strapped inside. I mean, yeah, that's the reality of a gaming laptop. You can't really use it, everywhere unless you have somewhere to plug in and charge. And it would be great, to at least get like 3 or 4 hours, especially because, when you're in a plane and it's flying, that long and everything, that can be a whole flight, just to be able to use it for 4 hours.